We are filming this special episode of Thrive with Us because a lot of people in our community are feeling understandably quite unsettled. On the one hand, we all feel safe and we know that the UAE government is taking good care of us and is communicating with us very clearly and transparently. On the other hand, it is very, very normal for people to feel on edge with what is happening because there can be a difference and a disconnect between what you know and how you think and how you feel and how your nervous system responds and reacts. So we decided to come together to talk about the things that people are noticing in their minds, in their emotions, in their bodies, and to share some tools and techniques that might be useful as we navigate this period of uncertainty. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from Thrive, Ash and Dina. Welcome both. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
So it's an unsettling time is the word that I just used. And we were discussing this before we started filming, and we have been over the past week to 10 days. What are some of the things that the two of you have been observing in your clinical work, in your communities? What's coming up for people now?
I've been noticing the obvious signs of like a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety that's coming up with the uncertainty and kind of that internal instability. Like you mentioned, I think the government's doing a really good job making sure we're informed and helping us stay safe. But then just as human beings, these emotions are going to come up. And I feel like a lot of clients perhaps are eager to understand themselves and their responses to a lot of these experiences that they're having. And they're seeking that support. And I think it's really, really important that we do that. And perhaps that sign to come together and to be having conversations like this, because for a lot of people that I speak to, even friends, it's like the impulse is to isolate.
Yes.
And to want to get away from everything and just be alone until this kind of passes and goes away. But the truth is, even in our communities, we're very collectivist in nature. And the idea is we will feel better if we come together. So that's kind of the things I've been noticing in my circles, yeah.
And I think I've also noticed very similar pattern in my clinics now. And I think what I've been noticing is more of the emotional mind, which is hijacking the rational mind
Yes.
now. And this is much more prevalent with our clients who actually have an anxiety disorder. And they're actually finding it very difficult to even understand how do we actually navigate through this. And there are clients who've done so well on meds, so well on therapy, but when it's come to this point, it's like, we just feel as if nothing is working for us. And what I've actually found is rather than actually telling them, oh, don't try and control these things, but what I found useful is that I've actually reassured them and I've told them, and I've kind of normalized this, saying that it's something that most of us are actually going through. It's not just you as an individual. I think the society as a whole is going through. And I was kind of drawing example from my own experiences, kind of getting stuck in Europe, not knowing what exactly is going to happen. So like millions of questions that were going through my head, and I was just trying to get sense of where we are going with this. And what I actually found useful was to ground myself and then kind of breathe better and then get a clarity that, okay, this is what I actually can do in order to navigate through this. And I've actually found that quite useful.
Yeah, I think I've noticed very similar, and I think what both of you have just shared is going to resonate with a lot of the people that are listening to this conversation, because there are layers and a lot of mixed and competing thoughts and emotions. So thinking about what both of you just shared, I'm hearing a lot of overthinking. The brain is running all the time, thinking through all of the things that can go wrong, catastrophizing, the unhelpful worries, and even people that maybe have struggled with anxiety in the past and have had that sort of managed and under control and have been doing well, all of a sudden there's this curveball and we're kind of back. So I'm hearing from you, Ash, that there's a little bit of regression for some people, which is very, very understandable because our minds are just spinning with all of the what ifs and what's going to happen. And then I think the other piece that came up quite strongly for me, and I also mentioned at the beginning, is there are these very incompatible things that are happening at once. Like, on the one hand, pretty much everybody that I talk to says, I feel really grateful and happy that I'm here and I feel safe. And Ash, you were just saying you left Europe to come back to the UAE. So there is this sense of, I do feel safe, but at the same time, whenever I get this alert in the middle of the night, or even when I'm going about my regular activities, it sends a jolt up my spine. So those two things can be true. And if anyone is experiencing those things, it's very, very normal reaction to a very, very abnormal situation.
Yeah. And in reference to that, Sarah, actually, I was reading something the other day that speaks to that. And the person that was talking kind of named it as context dissonance, which is kind of this idea of we're living relatively normal lives and we're being reassured of safety and we all feel safe. But then the reality is we're getting these notifications, we're reading the news, we're seeing all of this happening right outside our doors, but we're not entirely fully experiencing it. And it creates this dissonance internally, which creates a lot of that internal chaos and turmoil. And that's why, like, one of the recommendations was that is why we should come together and talk about our experiences and put words to the like experience that we're having inside. Otherwise, the dissonance continues and we're not actually able to process any of those emotions. So it's almost like it's one of those periods of time now where anxiety is priming us to plan ahead, but we can't right now. And we have to almost force ourselves in ways to sit in the present and go day by day. And that's what exacerbates a lot of like those anxiety symptoms too.
Yeah, the dissonance piece makes a lot of sense. I hadn't heard that expression, context dissonance, but it really speaks to me. And I think while you were sharing that, one of the things that I thought of is all of the loved ones that we have that are not here, because there is quite a lot of dissonance as well between what they're hearing and what they're seeing and the reality that we are actually living here on the ground. So there's an element of, there's a difference between how we're feeling, and there's the internal chaos, as you described, Dina. And then there are people who are seeing things that are very, very different, and then understandably experiencing their own anxiety for us. And then for some people, sometimes it turns into, now I need to park my own anxiety and all of the things that are coming up for me because XYZ in, whatever outside place is freaking out and I need to contain them. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. And I think the context dissonance also actually extends towards our family who are actually not here. And you're quite right. And then I think the problem is that so much of misinformation is out there.
Yes.
And our brains does not have the capacity to make sense of that information. And before we make sense of the information, we are actually loaded with 10,000 different things. And sometimes we know that our loved ones are projecting their anxiety onto us, and it becomes sometimes difficult for us as individuals to handle that form of anxiety because we know where they're coming from. But trying to get them to understand that this is not the fact and there's a lot of fake stuff that's going out there makes it more and more difficult for them to even understand. They feel that you're just trying to be strong here, but not necessarily you are strong. But sometimes that battle itself is so anxiety provoking.
It is exhausting.
And I'm just wondering, is us as individuals who are going through this, I'm just imagining how our clients who've been struggling with mental health are actually going through this. I had a client this morning, very classical, alert comes at 1 o'clock in the midnight. Rather than trying to sleep and go back to sleep, the person is actually doom scrolling, looking on Insta, looking on TikTok, looking on whatever, God knows, so many social media information, and then just hoping that maybe the next news would be a good news.
Yes.
So you never actually have that good news.
No.
And by the time you realize what you've done, it's already early in the morning. You are just tired.
Honest question. Have you doom scrolled since this started?
I have.
I haven't.
Okay. Well, then teach us, because I do it all the time, and I recognize when I'm doing it, and sometimes I can stop, but I think it's very hard to avoid because that's just what's on our phones, whether people are sending it to us, whether our algorithm is pushing it our way. And, you know, with the way that things have been going, people are, I think, spending a lot more time on their phones, and the content that we're being exposed to is not particularly helpful, but it is eye-catching, attention-grabbing. Even if you're holding your phone and being like, this is such garbage, like this is not actually true, you can't help often to do it. So tell us, Ash, what's your secret?
No, I don't have a secret. And I think my experience might not relate to a majority of the population here. But what I've actually found useful is that not actually having social media apps on the phone is quite useful. And I've never been one who actually follows social media for a while. But I know my partner actually does this quite often time. And I keep telling her, it's good for you to watch it, but do not get into the mode that, oh, this is not good. I want to keep watching something. As I was explaining, hopefully the next news is going to be a good news. But it's not easy for them to do that, because your internal mind is all about safety. And you're always looking for a good news, and then I'm going to escape this and everything's going to be okay. But that never really arrives. So the way I actually explain to my partners and my family, watch it, process it if you can. If it's not easy for you to process, just try and keep some time away from all these phones, because it will actually give you enough time to kind of reflect on what you've seen, kind of process the information, and then try and make sense of this. If you feel, yes, this might be a fact, okay, then think about it. But if you feel that this might not be the right information, don't jump again to look for something else, because you will never really find that information. And our minds are very myopic in a lot of ways. So we always attach or link ourselves to information that our mind wants to read.
Yes.
So if you're looking about war and the algorithms are so interesting, they will just keep throwing on wars and wars and wars.
They will.
Yeah, but it's important, because if you don't do that, that's where the internal dissonance starts in. You start noticing your breathing is just all over the place. You get anxious, you get irritable, you start losing concentration, you start losing focus. You're not really effective or productive at work. So I try and link that information with this. If you do this, this is the outcome of what's going to happen. And that kind of helps some of my friends and family to understand this might not actually be the right thing to do.
I think that one of the very important elements is for all of us to be mindful of where we're getting our news and the source. So the amount that we're consuming, how it's making us feel, taking that time to reflect and process, that's a very, very important part that I think we should spend some time discussing. But I also think that not all news is created equal, and it's really important for us to make sure that we are getting our news, at least here, from the local sources where we can believe it, and it's not sensationalized news with its own agenda from other places that really can't be trusted. So first piece of advice for anybody listening is check the sources, go with official sources, and make sure you're following reputable news agencies.
And just maybe adding a layer to Ash to what you were saying, which I think is so important to remember in terms of our relationship to social media. I think that it's an element of keeping in tune with the news, but also an element of wanting to stay informed and our responsibility as humans and citizens to want to know what's happening around us, right? So I know with a lot of my clients, it's also that our families come from war, and you know, our relationship to war is not just our generation, it's intergenerational, right? So even, you know, living with parents and having parents experience hearing these noises and sounds and trying to make sense of the world, they're getting triggered from their own experiences with having to leave their countries, experiencing this at some time in their life. And I'm noticing that a lot with even my friends telling me about their parents who, you know, might have been around during the Gulf War and having to have experienced those noises and sounds and that fear, and even the way that they're operating alerts our nervous system, and it almost puts us in a position of, well, we're responsible now and we need to stay in touch and we need to tell our parents what's happening. And so it's almost to this responsibility that's being handed to us that we have to balance too, of like, we want to be informed, we want to be helpful, we want to take the burden off other people. But yes, it's finding that balance. And what I like to tell clients and even myself is, I don't want to disconnect from it.
No.
I want to find balance in it, which means I'm not accessing, my social media and the news early in the morning or before I want to sleep. I'm finding a time during the day where I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this for the sake of staying informed. I want to know what's happening around me. I want to be alert. I want to be aware. I'm going to set 10 minutes at this time of day to get that information from sources that I trust and that we should be looking at. But then also making that time to connect with people, making that time, some of us have kids too, making that time to make sure that we're still in tune and in touch with our life. So I think that although social media sometimes gets this bad rep of like, yes, it sucks us in, it's addictive, it's also a beautiful thing that connects us, keeps us informed. And if we have friends around the world, it's keeping us all connected. So it's kind of like finding that balance of not completely cutting off, but finding ways that work for you. And everyone has a different relationship to it.
Yeah. And I think also, like, as you were saying, social media does get a bad rap, but there is a lot of content out there that can be really helpful and reassuring. I mean, we're having this conversation hoping that we can provide some sense of grounding to people, even for a few moments. But it also can help, like you were saying before, Dina, and you as well, Ash, feeling like there is a collective experience, like you're not alone in what you're going through in terms of your thoughts and your emotions and the way that your life is very different these past 10 days or so compared to how it was a month ago. And I think one of the things that came up for me is this CBT intervention called Worry Time. And it's about kind of putting some parameters around your use or worrying in this case, but we can apply it, I think, to social media as well, rather than saying don't, because that's just not really very possible. And it might not even be the responsible thing to do to be completely cut off, but to say, I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to know. You said, for example, that you don't want to check social media before you go to bed because I imagine it interferes with your sleep. Do you know what I do every single morning? I actually have an alarm that's set for 5:10 every single morning. And I wake up, eyes wide, I grab my phone, I check every single news source because I'm responsible for our clinic, right? And I'm like, this gives me 3 hours to kind of assess what is the current state of things. And if there's any decision that needs to be made now, it gives me time to action it. So I open my eyes.
Sending you so much
I
love.
scroll through everything. And then, thankfully I'm able to go back to sleep. So I need that. If I didn't do that, then I would probably wake up really much more anxious because what if something happened that I wasn't able to catch in action? So I think we need to see what serves all of us, but putting some kind of boundaries and allowing ourselves to use it for a fixed period of time, I think can be really helpful. And, staying informed, let's say we're not on social media or connected to our phone when something happens, we're not going to miss it. I really don't think if something really serious or major happens that any of us is going to miss it. Even if we're doing anything away from a device, the public safety alert system will catch our attention. Someone will come storming into whatever room that we're occupying and we will be informed. So this idea of I'm going to miss something, probably not very realistic, honestly.
No, I don't think so. You're right there. I think we are surrounded by so much of news and information. I don't think we're going to miss anything. I think it's just to train our minds to catch what's really important for us rather than actually taking just about everything. Because if you start taking just about everything, you are absolutely going to feel not only miserable, you're also going to feel as if I'm just losing that sense of control. And that's what anxiety, that's what worry is all about. The moment you start noticing I do not have control, and you just feel everything is just going to be a doom for that person. So I think it's really important that we keep our clients informed. as part of my clinical work, what I actually do when I'm talking and having conversation about these scenarios, I always keep reminding them, see, there's nothing called as a stupid question when you're feeling this way. And if you feel that you want to connect with us, just drop me an email, just drop us a WhatsApp message. I'm more than happy to respond to your queries. Rather than you actually sitting in isolation and just kind of processing all this, you are actually going to feel as if you're just losing that sense of control. And once you do that, you are going to be bombarded with not so good thoughts in your head. And one of them would be to escape. And then your mind is going to run around looking for flights or a taxi or a car, I don't know, or a private jet, who knows? And if you do not succeed in getting one of those, which is going to feed further into the idea that this is going to be a doom for them. So the idea is, rather than sitting in isolation, write to us.
Yes.
And I've had few emails since I've been back, and most of the highlights was, what do we do? We're worried about our medications. Is the medications going to be available? What if you're not around here? And I keep telling them, see, I came for you guys here. So you should.
I came back in.
to serve you guys. So just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to respond. And I've actually found that very reassuring for our clients, and especially a lot of our expats community. They actually live on their own. So most of their families, friends are just away. The friends they have are more like business friends. They're not really friends that you can just go and talk about these things. And what I've also noticed is, if you're meeting four people will have four different scenarios.
Totally.
Which is so difficult sometimes to get to a common ground, which actually makes them feel more anxious. So I keep telling them, reassuring them, any issues, let me know. I can try and support you as much as I can. I cannot control the narrative, but I can give you ideas on how do we navigate through this. So don't feel that you're in isolation here.
You don't have to be alone. And I think it's important for people to know that there are supports that exist out there, like the type of work that you do and the type of work that you do, Dina and Ash. But at the same time, we also have our own communities that are here and that are overseas that we can rely on and tap into for support. But it's about sort of, again, finding that line, because it's really helpful. And I think one of the things we know in times that are catastrophic, people come together. That's like a silver lining of natural disasters and other human-made situations. People come together. At the same time, not every interaction is grounding. Sometimes those interactions can actually be more unsettling. And sometimes you might interact with people who make you feel really good and it's a little bit of a distraction. But then after that, you need your own time. Like you've used up all of your bandwidth. And so I think checking in with ourselves on, how do I feel? Do I feel like I want to connect? How do I feel after connecting with that person? Or I notice that I'm dreading every time I see this person's name popping up on my phone. What's that all about? Is it because I know that they're calling to, have the same conversation that we've had 19 times before and we don't have the same opinion on it? Then that might be an opportunity to either to put a boundary. Right?
And like if
protect
there was
yourself.
and if there was ever a time to do that, it's now, of like being kind of picky about the emotional kind of environment that you have around you. And you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to decide that, anytime I'm around this person, they do want to talk about things in a very catastrophic and negative way that leaves you feeling so out of sorts that you can't even regulate anymore. We want to be mindful of those things too, because there are people that you kind of come around. And I even encourage like clients to tell their friends, like at the beginning when we're getting together, of like, hey, let's set the parameters of what this gathering is going to be like. Like maybe it's not going to be about us discussing what's happening, or maybe it's just going to be like, let's play a board game. Let's have fun. Let's pause our minds a little bit from that. Almost like people sometimes view distractions as a negative thing. It's a healthy distraction away from a situation that we don't have control over right now. So it's being very picky about where we spend our energy. Same thing I tell clients that are living with their parents or extended family members, where they're constantly bombarded with that feeling of their family's anxiety, to also find pockets of time for yourself. disconnect from that, to be able to like regulate your own emotions. We have a responsibility towards our community and our family to show up, but we need to have, like, we need to recharge our own batteries
course.
daily to keep that up. So yes, to the duty and responsibility we have, but also to that balance of we have to be recharging to be able to give that to them.
And it can look different every single day.
Yep.
Today, I might have slept relatively okay, and I might be up for having these interactions. And if I have someone that is really having a difficult day, I can absorb and I can hold that. Tomorrow, I might not be able to. And so just checking and monitoring how you're doing and adjusting, rather than, I think, sticking to very hard and fast rules of, I'm going to do this every single day and it's going to look the same. It's not. It's so fluid and things are changing, and there are so many, moving parts, and we have to be flexible, and we also have to give ourselves grace.
Yep.
One of the things yesterday that happened to me, it's a very small thing, but I was working and my daughter was doing something beside me, and she's like, "What time is it?" And I told her it's March 11th. And then she just started laughing at me. And then I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And like that's my brain was a fried egg yesterday.
Correct.
So are you also noticing with people? I'm noticing, and I'm trying to normalize that experience by sharing what happened with me. But like there are moments of focus and clarity, and things get done and you push through. But there are times where your brain just feels like mush, and things that would normally feel very easy are very difficult. Would you say that that's something that you've been seeing? What are some of the symptoms?
I think the classic thing, what I've been noticing with a lot of my clients, is the brain fog. Because as we've been talking about the whole narrative driven by social media, and the brain does not have that capacity to process all that information. So they're noticing this brain fog. They're noticing a very muddled brain, difficult to concentrate. They're finding themselves being much more emotional on smaller triggers. They're finding their sleep is just all over the place now. It's like every time they go to sleep, they're already anticipating, here comes another alert, and comes another alert. So anyways, you're not sleeping well, you're sleeping very light, you're worried about what's going to happen. And as explained before, you wake up not thinking that I'm going to go back to sleep, but I want to doom scroll now because that's what I'm going to see, what's going to happen next. This is something that I've noticed over the last 10 days since I've been back here, and majority of my clients have been kind of hinting more towards this rather than anything else. They're also struggling at work, in spite of being completely aware that this is nothing of their doing. But they also aware that if they are not productive, they are also worried about what if they lose their jobs. So a lot of these questions are actually just driving them to that brink of not knowing what to do now.
And to add to, I think one that I'm noticing in myself, but in clients too, is like decision paralysis too, which is like, I can't even make small decisions about the most minor things that are inconsequential. Like, what am I going to eat now? I don't know, right? Because I think what happens is we're making these really grand, trying to make grand decisions with no ability to make those future plans. And now we're stuck with these small day-to-day things. And because of the brain fog, because of all of these other stressors, it's like even the smallest things are huge tasks. And another piece that I noticed with clients too is like, and I'm noticing it as well, is this feels so reminiscent of COVID.
Yes.
And it's bringing up triggers of that so deeply, especially in clients that haven't processed the impacts COVID had on them when it comes to isolation, when it comes to being away from people, when it comes to the way that we had to live during that period of time. And more and more I'm noticing when clients are talking about it, they're even making that connection of like, working from home, this means that, and automatically our nervous system is responding from that period of time. But now we're adding a layer of fear that perhaps wasn't present for a lot of people during COVID, like an elevated fear of a different sort. And that is just kind of like, again, a type of distress and overwhelm that's hard to settle because there's so much we can't do anything about. And it's almost, I'm always encouraging my clients and myself of like, if there was ever a time to try to turn off our brain and connect with our body more and try to settle ourselves like on a physiological level, it would be now, because I'm noticing being so preoccupied with planning and thinking, and there's no point in doing that now, that the only thing that we can really do is be in control of our breathing, our emotions, our connections, and trying to regulate through that. And I'm finding that's at least helping me a lot in terms of regulating my emotions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm hearing from you. You were saying earlier that people are having reactions because of, intergenerational experiences, and now broadening it a little bit, people that have lived through COVID. I definitely have been hearing that in my circles, particularly for people with families, and just thinking about now with the kids being the spring break being moved and the kids being online, it's just this fear of what if. And so we're getting back into the hypothetical worries of what if this happens and then this happens, and there's a lot of catastrophizing, but we don't really know what's going to happen, and it's not really serving us. So what I'm hearing from you, Dina, that I think is really important, and maybe we can talk through some like concrete strategies for people, is we need to ground ourselves. And that requires a lot of going back to basics. You mentioned about people's sleep being disturbed. So putting, I think, effort into good sleep hygiene to the extent that we can in these circumstances. Trying to move our bodies is extremely important. Trying to eat relatively well, I think, is important too, but at the same time not depriving us, because there can be a comfort in coming together over food. And usually it's over food, not like broccoli and kale. It will be like chocolate cake, or for me, I ordered kushari, like the first time I've had it in so long, and I ate it for 2 days in a row. I'm like, I needed this today and today. But then social connection, and then grounding ourselves. So maybe we can talk about some of those exercises that we can do, and some techniques that you've noticed are helpful with clients.
I think I've found breathing really important. I've been telling my clients to exercise. If they can't actually get to the gym, just go for a walk, get some fresh air, and also get the sense of this feeling that everything is not that bad. Because once you're out in the community, or once you're out on the roads walking, you'll see a lot of like-minded people who are doing the same thing. You'll not feel that you're actually in isolation here. So that's what I found really useful. I've also been telling my clients to engage socially with their friends, not necessarily with overseas family, though they are important, but sometimes with that kind of information that's shared, it's important just to keep ourselves away from that. But having like-minded people to connect with, to talk to, is also really good for them. I've also been giving them some ideas on sleep hygiene, the same idea of no phone half an hour to an hour before going to bed, and no phone an hour after waking up from bed. So both the waking hygiene and the sleeping hygiene. So I've been kind of focusing on that, trying to give them a clarity that keep a fixed time on your social media content use, that you're going to do that. If you enjoy music, go for that. It's really good. Try and avoid as much as visual you can, because that can also trigger a lot of these behaviors. But anything which connects your senses, especially your auditory and your mind, is actually going to be much more useful, because that actually gives you that sense that I'm actually present. Otherwise, we'll oscillate between our past and our future, not knowing exactly what is going to happen when. So these are some of the techniques that I always spend about 5 to 7 minutes in my just about the end of the session. So it's kind of reiterating the same thing over and over again. And I keep telling them medication is important, but if you follow these things, medication is also going to be really beneficial for you. But if you do not follow any of these things, you might start noticing medication is not being effective. Then that's the other set of worries that you're going to have. My medications are not working. So I'm already feeling so anxious. Meds are not working. What do I do now next? So in order to avoid that scenario or anticipate that this is going to go bad, let's just focus on non-medical treatment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And to add to that, too, of definitely all the things you mentioned are so important. And I think anything that brings us back to like baseline as humans, right? The movement, the eating, the sleeping, which is always the go-to things. I think two elements that come to mind are always for me, a lot of our anxiety and or maybe lower feeling and mood these days can be perhaps channeled in ways that require us to give back to our community in different ways, right? So I always talk to clients that are feeling kind of hopeless and overwhelmed with the state of the world and what they're experiencing, to really go out and do something to feel like they're trying to give back, because that helps a lot. So it's almost this idea of how do I get away from myself to give back to other people. And sometimes that distance from our mind and kind of the tricks it plays on us in moments like this really helps when we expand our energy outward. And it's our responsibility, I feel, to do that, right? So even if you think of different areas in Dubai here that people are still working, like if we think of like Uber and Careem drivers and people that are still out there are so many ways that we can help support them, because they're a lifeline for us even during this time, right? So I think of ways too that not only in context to what you said of like not everything's not that bad, but also how can we counter a lot of this heartache that we're seeing like around the world in this thing with hope, right? With these small little ways of seeing within our community, within the world even, of people that are trying to do good and are trying to help. And like it's like I don't know if you guys used to watch Mr. Rogers when you were little, but he had said this line that his mom told him, which is whenever there is anything that's really harmful and hurtful to see in the news and around the world, is to look for the helpers and to always find people that in the light of all of this darkness that are like shining a light of like, this is humanity, this is what we're looking at, right? So even for us to check in with those things and remind each other of the goodness that we still have, because it's so easy to get lost in what we're witnessing. So even those little measures that we can do for ourselves. And I think finally, something that I'm trying to do as well is to check in on our friends and family that are already struggling, like whether that be with any kind of mental health condition, that are struggling a little bit more than we are to manage things. Reach out to them, see how you can support them, try to be there for them, cook them a meal, do something that again can allow our energy to flow outward so that we feel like we're contributing in any way that we can.
I think both of you shared a lot of really important insights. And I think one of the major things that sort of goes into all of it is that we are all part of a community, right? And a larger group. And so as you were saying, that something that can bring people a sense of relief is going out and seeing like-minded people, even if you don't interact with them. And similarly and related to that, you know, going for a walk and just the gentle head nod, it's a way of feeling like I'm not alone, right? I'm not alone. Life is still relatively normal. These people also look like they're engaging in their sort of normal everyday practices, but also maybe I can detect that there might be layers that they're experiencing from their facial expressions like me. I'm not alone. And then Dina, like finding the helpers, I think is a really beautiful thing. And you mentioned hope and optimism. Both of those things are associated with enhanced well-being, and it's very difficult to have those right now. And it's not about, you know, and I know that's not what you were saying, but like this toxic positivity sort of frame of, it's not so bad. Like you could be somewhere worse and have it much worse than this. And like, you know, but just picking up on some of the beauty that surrounds us in our day-to-day lives, and trying to reach out and support and connect with people in those altruistic ways. At the same time, all of us have various levels of responsibilities, and our bandwidth can change from time to time. So I think another sort of theme that we've been discussing is tuning in with ourselves and making sure that we're in the headspace to be able to do all of that. And if we're not, that's okay. And all three of us have talked about the importance of sleep, eating well, and movement. And I think everybody knows that those things are important, but also so many people are struggling from decision paralysis. And so many people approach these types of things with, okay, I need now, the way I'm going to feel better is I need a regime. I am going to do this exercise and I'm going to, like do all of this cooking and do it doesn't have to be that. It can just be like one small thing. And if you don't do it today because you needed to order koshari, which is probably not the healthiest thing, and you wanted to watch TV after, no judgment, like maybe tomorrow is another day. So I think also having realistic expectations and really giving ourselves grace and just really leaning into the fluidity of this experience, and that today and tomorrow can look very different in terms of how we're feeling and what we're capable of, is important to remember.
Absolutely. And then I think it's important for us to reassure our clients and extended families and friends, please learn to be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Because I think in
Very
this
important.
whole process, we actually forget who we are, and we take on different shoes, as we were talking about the whole responsibility. And if I'm the sandwich generation where I have parents, where I have the kids, then I'm the one who's actually responsible for the well-being of the whole world. And I think it's really important to help them understand. The first thing starts with being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
If you're kind to yourself, things are going to be okay. We're not saying that things have to be beautiful or things have to be like roses on the bed. No, we're just talking about the okay. I take the okay now being the okay, the best one. And if you do that, you will start noticing that you can actually start controlling these narratives. But if you're not kind to yourself and you're just thinking that I'm going to take on this Iron Man head and just kind of save the whole world, that's not going to happen. And the other thing I also found useful is to help my clients to create a structure for them, especially clients who are actually working from home, clients who are actually on their own. I actually tell them, just create a structure, a small timetable, stick it on the fridge, just write a few things that you want to do for the day, and just make sure you have like exercise or mindfulness or breathing. Just do it for 10, 15 minutes. And then just kind of visualize, oh, I have actually done this. So that also kind of distracts you from the whole narrative that's going in the background. But also gives you that sense that, see, I can actually look after myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about too, like the added layer of having kids and being a parent through this, because you do have a responsibility and you can't turn it off almost. So it's also a little bit of having a lot of grace for yourself as a parent during this time, but also recognizing that our kids are very much in tune with our nervous system. And as you know, parenting couldn't get hard enough. It's like you have to practice regulating your nervous system as much as possible. And if these little things that you're going to do throughout the day are going to help them regulate their emotions, it's also something that we should be really keen on doing, because I know a lot of parents are struggling with their own anxiety and fear over what's happening. And when they're noticing their kids responding to that and or feeling that too, they don't know what to do with it, and it starts to feel a little bit even more overwhelming. So this significance of grounding, but then also in the same way, Ash, that you mentioned, not only to reach out for help like through, avenues like therapy, but I've heard a lot of clients say, well, I don't want to burden people in my life. And that's not the time for this. Like, we need to burden each other with everything. And burdening at this point is a good thing for us because it helps us realize that we're all in this together. So my shout out to everyone is to call people, tell them that you need help, ask for support, whether that be parents or anybody else. Like, we need each other, and there are people in your life that have capacity even to talk to you, even to parent. Like, I know I get a lot of relief from talking to my friends who are also parents and being like, are we good? Like, is this,
Yeah.
are you feeling this way too? And you're like, yeah. And I think the best method that I've used, like with my own daughters, is like trying to consistently tell myself to slow down, because I'm just kind of like all over the place and I need to get this done. But it's just, I'm going to slow down and play this board game with them. And it's so hard to do, but like, yes, I'm having fun. But being able to slow down also regulates our nervous system, because it almost forces us to stop and be present. And like Ash was saying, like a form of distraction a little bit too.
Yeah.
But they're going to feed off of that.
Yeah. And I think, you were referencing the sandwich generation, and similar also to what you were saying, Dina, about your friends that are parents. One of my friends just told me yesterday, she said, I've got all sorts of emotions and so many things that I'm experiencing right now, but I need to suck it all up and come across as being very together and very unbothered, because there are people around me that are really struggling and there's no real space for what's going on for me. And that's really tough, because some people are struggling more than others, and then even each person has days that are more difficult than others. But we do need to come together, and in line with what you were saying is with burden people, it's their responsibility to put the boundary. So if you are in need of an ear, or just venting to someone or asking somebody's advice, go for it. If they don't have capacity, it's kind of on them to say, I love you, I care about you, I'm just really overwhelmed and drowning in my own stuff. Can we pick this back up tomorrow, if they are absolutely unable to do it? But to hold ourselves from connecting just sort of further drives us into isolation, and then it further depletes those resources of holding it together, and then eventually everything comes out, and then we feel even worse. So reaching out, I think, is really important, and not thinking, I think you said earlier, being Superman or Superwoman. Like, we don't have to be superheroes. And even for our kids, like, we want them to know and to understand that it's safe and we're safe. Also, mom and dad, like, we can be the sturdy leaders of the household. We're also people, and we also get unsettled when in the middle of dinner, like, the phone goes off, or we see this imagery on the local news. Like, that's okay. This is information. We evaluate the sources. We, process it for what it is, and then we move on, right?
And I think it's in the same way that we're teaching, our clients, and we're learning how to understand our emotions and regulate them. Kids have capacity to learn how to regulate all emotions, right? And if I think I work with a lot of parents that feel that they have to suppress all of those emotions from their kids, but kids are receptive, like they're in tune with those emotions regardless. So either you give them a framing for it, or they're going to make their own. So it's like, even in fear, right? Of like, that was a scary sound. I'm scared. Are you? I think that's a very beautiful, validating experience for a kid to be like, oh, that's an experience to feel that I'm allowed to feel and I should be feeling. And mom feels it too, but she's okay. And I'm watching her body cues, and I'm watching the way she's responding. And that's kind of how we're teaching our kids in these moments, right? Which requires a lot of skill on our own end, which again, I find with a lot of clients in therapy learning that right now, because a lot of us didn't learn that growing up in terms of even naming emotion. Like, so a great opportunity to tune into those things as well. Like, let's add to the list of responsibilities this period of time, but a good moment too to reflect on these areas with our kids.
And I've actually coined a good word for all this: building the emotional infrastructure.
Yes. I wrote that down when you said it yesterday too. I loved it so much. Yes.
It's all about building that emotional infrastructure. And then it's kind of being so self-aware, grounded, and being completely in tune with what is happening around, in order to reflect and then project what you're thinking onto people around you. So it's like kind of controlling the whole narrative in a circle of hope, love, and kindness, and making sure that you're not letting any external information or external person coming and breaching that circle of hope and kindness. It's all about taming the monkey in the brain.
Yes. Easier said than done, as a lot of the things that we've been
course.
talking about today. But I think as well, one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is that it's a process, right? And every day is different. So
Yes.
one day you might be a fantastic emotional architect,
Yeah.
and the next day, there might be an on-site catastrophe.
Correct.
And it's not about throwing that out, but it's just about kind of going back to basics,
Yes.
really tuning into what it is that you need to kind of get through and push through and go back to what it is that you were trying to do, which is be more aware, create a context and a space that's good for you, and one that can then help you be responsible and connect with and support all of the people that are in your immediate circle, as well as within the broader circles of your environment.
And even an added layer maybe that we can branch under like coping and managing too is perhaps like a spiritual,
Yes.
like religious element too. Like I'm hearing from a lot of like my friends and clients too that this kind of situation is bringing up a lot of existential questions about life and about what blessings we have and what things we've taken for granted, and this ability to realize that when we don't have control, if we do have that layer of faith, there is something beyond that that we can lean on. And I think people forget that that's a beautiful coping strategy to lean into, to connect to something greater, to pray to something greater, to ask of things from something greater. That brings on a lot of that kind of relief, especially for a lot of clients that I've talked to, because it does allow for a sense of control perhaps that they can't access anywhere else. And so maybe just that reminder piece that like, yes, there's a lot of these psychological areas that we can lean on for coping, but things as close to our heart as faith and connection to that can also bring about a calming and regulating feeling for us, even within our communities, especially like for us now in the month of Ramadan too, that we're experiencing this. It's like an opportunity for that reflection as well.
Yes, I completely agree. And our last episode that we did, Judy and I filmed it just a few weeks back, talking about some Islamic concepts. This was before any of this unfolded, but some of the Islamic concepts that can really support mental health, like tawakkul, like the trust and sabr, the patience, and muhasaba, the introspection and self-reflection. All of those things actually are embedded very much in what we talked about today. So I think being in the holy month is an opportunity. People are kind of, it's more central, and just this reminder that faith and faith-based communities can also provide a huge sense of support and relief.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for taking the time. This was something that came together very, very quickly, but I appreciate all of your insights, and I hope that, anything that we discussed today will bring even a moment of relief, of validation, of support to people that, like us, are navigating the uncertainty around these times. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Ash.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you.